Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Oh, Captain, my captain.
I'm telling you straight, it's my way or the highway.
Oh, command me, Lord. Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Tell me something, my friend. You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? I always ask that of all my prey. I just like the sound of it.
I'll have what she's having.
You have chosen wisely.
It reminds us of all that once was good. And it could be again.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious...
You're listening to the 30-something Movie Podcast. Classic movies, 30 years in the making.
It's episode number 274 of the Little Mermaid something podcast. It's reading is fundamental.
Reading is an option these days.
Apparently, right.
We don't have to read.
We don't have the best words. Those have already been taken. But we do have a podcast, and we are going to talk about a 1989 movie known as the Le Petit Syringe. Or The Little Mermaid.
The Petit Syringe?
No, not Syringe. Oh. That's a totally different movie.
Wait a minute.
I don't remember Syringe in this movie.
That's, isn't it James Wan? Isn't he the guy that does all the horror movies like The Conjuring? And that could be his movie. The Petit is a split off from the Saw.
So this is a Disney-fied episode.
Disney horror movie.
Which is why I'm here.
That's why Jeff's here, because that's all he cares about.
Is Disney.
Nothing else. Everything else
actually, I'm here because timing-wise, it worked.
It worked.
I was able to come back and join you guys. I missed you guys.
I know, we missed you
I've been listening to your episodes and wanting to yell at some of you guys for your opinions and how wrong you are. But then I just realized I'm yelling in my car and nobody can hear me, and it's just pointless.
That's true, and that's, for us, that's the best way for you to yell.
I get that a lot. But no, it's going to be it. Guys, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
It's Thanksgiving week.
Yes.
And I'm thankful that I get to still be a part of this experiment that John started 4 years ago.
Absolutely.
It's great to see you.
And that's working out.
And congratulations on the increasing size of the family and all that kind of stuff. And
it's been a piece of cake.
Yeah, as any parent out there knows. And also thank you to...
by popping my peas. Piece of cake.
And then pound the table while you pop your peas.
Yeah. Pull a Pat Canagallo there.
But also, congratulations to Katie as well. And
thank you very much.
Glad that the schedule was able to work, that you were able to join us, because I know that adds, that adds stressors on other sides of the thing and all that. So
yeah, well, and I appreciate you guys being patient with this episode, because it's, Little Mermaid is, while it's seemingly untraditional for a group of grown men to sit and talk about, there's a lot more to this movie. A lot more of the importance behind this movie that I wanted to touch base on.
Well, we kind of started talking about Little Mermaid when we were talking about Black Cauldron, what was that, 3 years ago?
Way back when.
Yeah,
that's part of the backstory. And I've got some notes, and I'm gonna do my best to explain it and condense it so we're not here forever, because we don't have that sort of time. But before we get into that, Pat, plug your ears.
Okay.
No, we're not going there yet.
Oh, not there yet. Okay.
No.
Never mind.
I did want to mention Netflix.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Toys That Made Us season 3.
That thing is still around?
It is.
Okay.
Season 3 of Toys That Made Us came out, and I was able to watch all 4 episodes. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, My Little Pony, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and WWF, WWE figures.
I heard about that one. Used to have a bunch of those.
I gave mine away to a family friend.
Okay.
Kind of like End of Toy Story 3.
Yeah.
I gave them to the next generation of the child that can appreciate those sorts of toys. This season was really good.
Okay.
I think they did a really nice job of combining the history, a deep dive into the history of the toys and the creation of the toys and the story, without it just being like, yeah, here are these figures. I feel like season 2 was a little bit lazy on their part. Season 3 was excellent.
Okay.
I think the best episode was the Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
I didn't know a lot of the backstory, or that the 2 creators had a falling out after 20 plus years and stopped talking to each other.
Of Turtles?
Yeah.
Eastman and Laird?
And it was this show that reunited them.
Really?
And kind of brought them back together.
Nice.
Really solid episode. And same thing with the just the backstory on all 4 episodes. They really did a nice job with the history of the creative process, not just these toys came out, here's what they did. So really enjoyable. This Friday, their movie series comes out, The Movies That Made Us. And they're doing a deep dive into older movies and the story behind the movies.
Nice.
4 movies they're discussing in season 1: Dirty Dancing, Ghostbusters, Die Hard, and Home Alone.
Nice.
I'm kind of looking forward to it because their pitch to Netflix involved taking the Die Hard movie poster and putting Sinatra's face over Bruce Willis's face. And that's what they used to say, this is what movie could have been.
Yeah.
We'd like to talk about that.
Which I think I actually did that when we did our podcast.
You may have,
I think I like superimposed Sinatra's face over when he's crawling through the air duct with the lighter.
They had a different shot.
I think I photoshopped that, yeah.
So that's what sold Netflix on the series. So that comes out this Friday. So I'm kind of looking forward to that as well.
Nice.
So that's all I have to say about the flicks.
The Irishman.
Irishman comes out soon.
And how cool that they do in the theater and on Netflix.
Well,
have you heard of The Irishman?
I've heard of it.
It's controversial.
It is controversial, but
it's easier for you to say.
Controversial.
I think it was just fun. This is controversial.
This is like back in the when the OJ trial was going on, and Dana Carvey had a stand-up special.
Yeah.
And he said, unless you're drunk, you can't actually say the word judicial system. Your Honor, the judicial system.
Yeah. So, anyways, I know it is controversial, but I'm excited to see it because they say
I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic.
I mean, you have Scorsese, you have De Niro, you have Pacino,
and Joe Pesci. No, Joe Pesci.
Yeah, and Joe Pesci.
Yeah,
Joey Fish. So yeah, and what can go wrong? It's quite a talented group.
It's very good.
And I know that Scorsese caught himself in a little hot water with some of his comments about Marvel movies, and that they're not cinema. It's like going to watch. It's the same experience of going to a theme park. Blah blah blah. Story for another podcast.
I like theme parks, so
everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Yes.
I didn't appreciate the number of people that showed hatred towards Scorsese as being a washed-up director. I'm like, you clearly don't know your movie history,
right? But
if you're calling him a washed-up director,
but of course, Scorsese is going to be the one to say something like that against the Marvel. Nothing against Scorsese, but it's like this guy makes these kinds of movies,
absolutely.
And of course he's going to say something like that.
And who came to his defense? Coppola.
Yeah.
Well, of course Coppola's going to come to his defense. And they grew up making different kinds of movies.
Right. And it's sort of like, okay, in one sense, I don't live my life like I don't yuck someone else's yum. Like whatever, I do my thing, you're like, that's fine. But of course, it's different types of movies all kind of gelling together. And the internet, suddenly, we can just totally...
Well, it's all the butthurt people on the internet
that
had to respond.
And then we respond.
And then now we need to go back and get another comment from them, and now they need to... Other people respond, now we need another comment. Let it be.
I know. I
understand the fact that it's a different style of movie making, a different style of storytelling. Scorsese, to me, Jeff Mizuka's opinion, has earned the right to have his opinion because of the body of work he's created.
Right.
He's not some no-name unknown trying to make a name for himself by making comments. He's earned the right.
Yeah.
Do I agree? Do I disagree? Doesn't matter.
Well, and here's what we've said several times on the podcast. If you don't agree with an opinion, that's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to shout back into the chasm. You can just be like, huh. Well, like I did. I read Scorsese's stuff and I was like, huh. Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't. I don't hate the guy because of his comments. I also am not sitting there going, "Would you know the Marvel movies are the best thing that's ever been made?"
Do you like Marvel movies?
Yes,
then it shouldn't matter what anybody else thinks of Marvel movies if you enjoy it.
I like some of Scorsese's movies. I like some of the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe Scorsese needs to do a Marvel movie.
Maybe he should.
Well, and it's like, how many times have we heard this from
Howard the Duck
in music? Think of that, like you get like.
I want to see Martin Scorsese do Howard the Duck.
Oh, that is excited.
The movie.
A movie, yeah.
Not do Howard the Duck. Make a movie.
That might be in the movie.
It could be.
Knowing Howard.
You look at like someone that's like a purist, a classical music purist, and suddenly if the symphony on one night they're not doing some symphony or piece from the high end classical repertoire, suddenly they're doing a movie music. There's some purists out there that'll be like, why are they doing that? Or that whole like orchestra plays, you watch the movie thing. But it's just like,
that's fine.
So don't buy tickets to that night. On the flip side,
so don't go.
Right. On the flip side, it's sort of like you see that in jazz music. You see, I'm sure the art world. I mean, this conversation has happened, and it's going to happen again. And it's like
just change the thing you're talking about.
Exactly. The only thing that just makes it like hey vey is as we've said, It's the internet and the whole thing, and it's like the culture is that now. I mean, like I sat down to watch Motor Race, and I sat down, and all of a sudden across the bottom there was a scroll of people's tweets. You could like tweet in, and I'm like, why do I care? If I want to know what that person thinks, I'll go to the local whatever sports bar. We'll watch the race together. I'll listen to that person think, and even the way they structure it, it's like, well, what did you say before after the last race, he said this about you. What do you think? Oh, well, after you raced that guy, it's just like, I want to see the show on the track. Like all this other kind of stuff. I mean,
save it for the track.
Save it for the track.
You want to prove a point? Let the rubber do the talking.
Yeah, we don't need to do this whole like, well, do you know what he said about this? Well, do you know what he said about this?
Well, do you know what John said about you?
I can't even imagine. But I'm not on social media, so it doesn't matter.
That's true.
There it is. You guys say whatever you want about Pat.
Just today, or we're talking about yesterday?
I don't want to talk about yesterday.
Okay. Yesterday.
I haven't gone to church yet. I can't talk about yesterday.
Yesterday was kind of awkward.
Speaking of music, let's do a shout out to David W. Collins of the Soundtrack Show.
Yes,
it keeps getting better and better and better.
And what is the latest show?
The Man with No Name trilogy.
Yeah,
I've got all three of them. I'm watching them over. My God, these are amazing movies.
One of the things I love about it is I never know what direction he's taking. I'm getting choked up.
Yeah, it cheers me up too.
Never know what direction he's taking the show. Like after he did the Danny Elfman stuff.
Yes.
Where's he going to take this? What's he going to talk about next? And now here we are talking about Morricone and Man with No Name. What a great semblance of music to talk about. I love his stuff, and Pat will tell you, I'm using a lot of David's words and David W. Collins. I thank you in advance to do a whole presentation to my students about movie music.
Yeah.
And as we're going to read Jurassic Park in a few weeks, the kids are going to build a soundtrack. And I'm just using a lot of the history of soundtracks that from the Soundtrack Show to help explain to the kids what are some elements to look for in choosing music to accompany story.
Yeah. Last year when I was working with a teacher, one of the music teachers in our district, she had a 5th grade project where the kids come up with a music composition. And it's just something real short, just a few notes, but it has to fit a particular kind of genre. It's got to, in some ways, in just those few notes, it's got to kind of tell a little bit of a story. So you kind of need to have background knowledge of why you're composing this music. And she had always done it a certain way in the past. And so I sat down with her and I said, I just happened to have listened to his show on Super Mario Brothers, the music. And I was like, what? I have a podcast. Just have your kids listen to like this 5-minute clip. And it talked all about how that music was just so simple, just a very simple series of notes. But the way it keeps getting used and the way it's used in different variations and he did kind of a deep dive into video game music and how video game music helps tell the story with the visuals on the screen, much the same way as movie music. And I was like, just take this. Just have your kids listen to this. And just so he's been invaluable for, I think, our brains and any students we've worked with lately, just talking about writing and music.
Any of you listening to us, pause, go look up the Soundtrack Show, download a couple episodes, come back and listen to us, and then start listening to those.
We have our Oklahoma contingent of podcast fans.
We do.
That I don't know if they were listening to the Soundtrack Show before we started talking about it or after. We'll just say right now, we'll take the credit. They heard about it on our show, so they went to go listen. So
Jason and friends, you are welcome.
But it's
huge shout out to David W. Collins and his
always
work.
Look forward to whenever a new episode drops.
And like his knowledge, the research that he puts into everything he does is
and I like he
so
tells you
well
he says where you can go. I got it from this book. I got it from here. I got it from the liner notes of the CDs, the albums, and
makes me kind of wish I was buying albums again so I can get some liner notes instead of just downloading music off of the iTunes store.
Yeah. He was fun to see live too. I saw him at Star Wars Celebration, and he was talking about the music of
no kidding.
Phantom Menace. Yeah.
Awesome.
It was really cool. And what I think the thing I really like about what he does in his show is, for me being a completely non-musical person, like I don't even think I could play any instrument right now if you sat me down in front of anything. But I always like how he has his keyboard right with him, and he'll tease out the note. He's not just replaying a recording of something; he'll tease out the notes. And for me as a non-musical person, that actually helps me hear it a little bit better when he plays it out on his keyboard and maybe repeats it a couple of different times and plays it a slightly different way. And so I always appreciate when he does that as he's kind of playing on the fly in his episodes. But for him, for that show, being a person who does not understand, both of my kids play an instrument, they're very good at it. I I don't even think I can read music. So for somebody who's completely music illiterate, his show, when I have a conversation, I can actually sound somewhat knowledgeable now, because he's like my encyclopedia of music knowledge. Thank you, David.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Yes.
As we're doing shout-outs of podcasts, I want to throw, as we transition into Disney, there's an episode of the WDW Radio Show.
Because everything is transitioning into Disney right now.
It is. The WDW Radio Show, episode 511. This is an interview of a man by the name of Thomas Nabby. And this is what I was telling you about at lunch that one day. Tom Nabby was a lifelong Disney employee. And the start of his story is he and his family moved to Anaheim right before Disneyland opened. And his mom was an autograph chaser. They would drive to Hollywood, go to the big movie premieres, and just stand along the carpet and try to get people's signatures, autographs. Did the same thing at the Disneyland opening. A lot of celebrities. So they're standing along the walkway, and Danny Thomas is there, and he's leaving the park, I guess. And Tom's mom gets Danny's autograph, and he says, "Oh, have you been in the park?" She said, "Oh no, we don't have tickets." He said, "Well, I have 2 extra," and gave them 2 tickets. So he got to go into the park as a 12-year-old, I think 12-year-old-ish, on opening day. Ended up having a lifelong career with Disney, including pleading with Walt Disney for a job. He created the Tom Sawyer character in Disneyland when Tom Sawyer Island was built, and in turn from there worked on and has become since a Disney legend, and is enshrined in a very rare feat in a window along Disney, the main street at Disney World.
Oh, cool.
In the Magic Kingdom in Disney World. Which, for those of you that aren't big Disney people, it's not easy to get your name on a window in Disney World. But he's got his name up there, which is really neat.
Nice.
Really cool story, just to hear, how he went from selling newspapers outside of Disneyland to being Tom Sawyer, to help run rides, to help design things. Tells a great story of having to walk the cement rails of the monorail when they were installing those because of different unions and issues, and not being able. It took so long to get into the work area because it wasn't run by Disney; it was run by the steel mills. That instead of trying to go through their security and all that, they would just walk along the cement rail from where they could get in to the new construction site. So, really cool interview.
That's cool. What's the name of the podcast again?
The WDW Radio Show.
Okay.
It's episode 511.
511.
Okay. Awesome. Cool.
Now, the other big Disney news as of late, as the last couple of weeks. Oh, there's more.
But
John.
wait, there's more.
There's more. Disney Plus has arrived.
Oh, man.
And if your household is anything like mine, it is the only thing that's happening on your televisions or devices.
For the most part, yeah.
Now, after some glitches on the first day, they got a lot of things figured out. I had a couple of issues I ran into the first day, but I was really pleased with how quickly they got things fixed.
The pages wouldn't load for me on the first day. They would load part way. So I was looking at it going, wait a minute. This is all you're offering on the first day? Like, I know you're going to bring more later on, but there's not much here.
Right.
And then like 20 minutes later, I reloaded the page on my computer. I was like, oh, no, there it is.
Right. I spoke, you heard.
Well, so here was part of the issue. Day one, over 10 million people signed up.
Yeah.
Day one.
Right.
That's insane. Absolutely insane. But good for them because it's working great. One of the things that they've done, though, with some of their movies, there was a lot of talk about some of their cultural references in some of their older films. And how are they going to handle this? Do they edit out scenes? Do they rework some scenes? And what they've done is they've kept everything intact, but included warnings, content warnings, of may contain outdated cultural references. What are your thoughts on that?
I like it. Like, I like the fact that they put that warning there, but it's still there for you to be able to watch. Like, because I would hate to have the movie of Dumbo. Let's just use that one as an example. I would hate to have the original animated movie of Dumbo be one that you edit out entire sections of the movie, or you don't even put it up at all because of some of the references that are in there. So I appreciate the fact that they put that there. And if you, same thing as like we're talking about the Martin Scorcese things. If you don't want to listen to the person's opinion, you keep walking.
Mm-hmm.
Don't stop and read it. Same thing with the movie. If you are super sensitive to those kind of things, don't watch it. And the fact that warning is there. Now I know that because one or two, maybe just one, but I know some of their properties were the entire thing was
right.
Culture, like Song of the South.
Song of the South isn't
like they're
streaming.
Just
probably won't be streaming.
Never putting that out anywhere.
Which I kind of hope that they do at some point. I think that you don't change history by ignoring it and pretending it didn't happen. You can use it as a conversation piece to grow. And I think that there are a lot of people that talk about how offensive Song of the South is, but I wonder how many people really know what the offense actually is in that movie. Or is it easier to say, no, it's offensive, we don't need to talk about it. But what is it exactly that makes it offensive? And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be offensive.
Right.
Don't take that as the takeaway from this.
For a movie like that, and I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but for a movie like that, don't release the movie, but do you make a documentary about the history of film and how we had culturally insensitive references, and here's how we've come, from 19 whatever until 2020 or 2019. Here's where we've come. Here are clips from the movie, so you can see it, but you see it in a context that explains it. Like I think for me, I would still say, if it's an extreme case like that movie, I would say maybe don't. I think it would be a mistake for them to release that on Disney Plus. But if they were to release it in a way that it was put in a context or it had some kind of education around it,
purpose.
Then, right. So if it was part of a documentary where maybe you show the whole movie, but maybe you just show clips of it and explain, here's where we were, here's where we've come, showing you the evidence, not condoning it, just showing you here's how things used to be.
And you want an explanation as to why, like I think you asked that question, like tell us why this is offensive, tell the young, tell the next generation why this is offensive, then you can put it up there. Here's why saying that's pretty bad. It's not just words, or it's not, because you look at the two, and I like what Disney did. I like the verbiage they put in, and everything you guys have said is great, so I don't need to just say it again on my own, but I like that they put the explanation as why are we doing this and why are we showing it, because we want to advance they're advancing the discussion, and they're giving the historical context of, if we just cover this up, then we forget that it happened, and we can't forget that happened. And so
I think one of the biggest names that I've heard come out and say that very thing, that we shouldn't cover it up, is Whoopi Goldberg. She's very much in the belief that no, it should be released, it should be available, but we need to talk about it. We can't just say, here's this for your viewing entertainment. Let's talk about when it was made. Let's talk about why it's not culturally responsible.
That's why I wouldn't put it out. If I was Disney, I wouldn't put it out on Disney Plus just as the movie, it's just the standalone movie itself, because in a service like that, kids are going to be clicking around, parents are going to be clicking around. There's no guarantee you'd have that conversation. If a parent just says, hey, it's Saturday morning, pour yourself a bowl of cereal and go watch some Disney Plus cartoons, and the kid's clicking around, they find it, they watch it. There's no conversation there. The parent trusts Disney because everything's pretty much rated PG or PG-13, and you go from there, no talking, no conversation. But I think if you have it as part of some larger program, then you have that conversation built in.
Well, what's crazy is you have one of the most popular theme park attractions based on that movie. Splash Mountain is based on Song of the South. Okay. Zippity Doo Dah came from Song of the South. Right. That music features heavily in that ride. You have characters in that ride that don't show up on anywhere else because it's being closed off. You're capitalizing on this thing that is culturally inappropriate. So I don't know, are the people that are saying the movie is wrong? I haven't heard anyone saying you should shut down the ride. People seem to enjoy the ride, just not the movie.
And that's the question that needs to be asked. And I think in one sense, if someone asks that question, they cannot be dismissed and said, oh, well, you're just being too sensitive. But on the flip side, okay, we can't just say close it, put it in a box, we're never going to talk about it again. We got to talk about it, and we have to have that explanation of is in that time, this is why it's offensive now. This is why it was offensive then. This is why we not tolerated it, but this is why we kind of turned a blind eye then. This is how we've, those questions on both sides, we have to be open to.
And what's your demographic of people who have seen Song of the South, found it offensive, have gone to Disney, have ridden the rides, have seen the characters, and recognize that those things are all part of the same thing? Probably a pretty small demographic. So people probably just haven't made those connections.
Yeah. So newer features of Disney Plus, moving us along. In just a couple weeks' time, they've added some new features to their platform. A couple of things that I noticed that were missing right away, and I had the same thought, like, it'd be great if you had the opportunity to resume a movie or a program as, from wherever you left off.
I've noticed that.
In my household, Toy Story plays at least once a day because Thomas is all about Toy Story now. And we'd pause the movie, but there'd be no way really to go back and restart it. We'd have to play it, pause it, go back, get it to the beginning. Well, that's been fixed.
Okay.
There's now an option to resume or restart.
Oh, nice. Okay.
In addition,
we watched Rogue One the other day, and it didn't do that. So
yeah,
I was like, oh my god, what? What? So okay, real quick criticism of the newer streaming platforms, Disney Plus and Apple TV Plus, because my son got a new smartphone, so we have a year of Apple TV Plus.
Okay.
I really like some of the programs that are on there. They have some really good shows. However, both Disney Plus, and it sounds like Disney's fixing that, Disney Plus and Apple TV Plus went to go watch shows on there, and there are features like that are missing, like being able to resume a movie after you've paused and left and came back. The other one that drives me nuts on Apple TV Plus is when I'm watching a TV series on Netflix, when I go back to Netflix, the next episode in my queue is already queued up for me, and I hit next. When I go to Apple TV Plus, it puts up episode 1 of the show, and my choices are either watch episode 1 or go back to your lineup of TV shows that you have saved in your watch list. I'm like, why do I have to go searching every time?
Disney Plus hasn't gotten...
And they don't have that either.
I think they might, because the next thing that Disney Plus added was a continue watching list, where when you go to Netflix, you have that option, these are the things I've already started, instead of trying to search and find them again or adding them to my watch list.
That was one of the things that drove me nuts at first, because when those things came out, I'm like, oh, yes, Disney Plus, Apple TV Plus, this is awesome. I'm getting all of these. Wait a minute. Netflix has been doing this for years. Why didn't you guys just look at that and go, okay, these are basic functions that we should have?
But
they're doing it now. So as long as they're doing it now, that's fine.
Within the first month, they've already made these significant changes to the platform, which would lead me to believe that the episode thing, the tick mark for each episode watched, is going to happen.
Yeah.
I hope so, because that would make it really well, this is just the almost perfect platform.
Right.
Shows, programming. A couple of notable programs.
Does Pat need to leave yet?
I'm gonna take a quick.
Pat needs to leave.
Mandalorian.
So here's what we've been watching.
Mandalorian?
I'm gonna go take a Mandalorian.
Okay. Have you seen that meme? The Simpsons one. It's Mo in the bar, and Bart is making the prank call. He's like, I'm looking for a Miss Lorian, a Mandalorian. And you got Boba Fett sitting at the end of the bar. Yeah.
Before we talk Mandalorian, a couple of
is there anything else?
Well, there are a couple of really cool shows on there.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
The Imagineering Story.
Okay.
Documentary feature about the inception of Disney, starting with the creation of Disneyland, going just up through, I don't know how far they're taking it. Really cool, really awesome deep dive into the history, talking about a lot of the hardships, a lot of the negative things that they learned along the way, a lot of the relationships that were burned along the way, getting to the point where they are now. So it's not always a pretty story. Another really cool documentary, which is where I got a lot of information from for our Little Mermaid discussion, is called Waking Sleeping Beauty, and it's a hard focus on looking at the animation department in the 1980s. What was going wrong, and what did they have to do to get it back, and how close animation was to being shut down altogether.
Yeah.
Like within inches of the entire department going away. How did it get to that point? And we can talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
So those were some really cool programs. Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah.
Mandalorian.
Oh, God.
This was something I was looking forward to from like the moment it was announced. I was just like, this looks incredible. So this story takes place a few years after
in
Jedi.
our hearts.
Years after, yes, there. A few years after Return of the Jedi. You have the Mandalorian.
Yeah, you do.
And here's what I'm going to say right off the bat. This is a Star Wars Western.
Yes.
Earlier this episode, we were talking about the Man with No Name trilogy. That's exactly what I envision as I watch each episode of this show. I picture Clint Eastwood as the Mandalorian.
I had when we were listening to the soundtrack show, and he was doing the music, and I think the music for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly came on, and John was in the car with me, and he's like, "What is this music?" And I was like, "It's Good, the Bad, and the Ugly." He's like, "This is sick," which, according to the kids, means it's cool.
If you say so.
Apparently we do. But yeah, so that came on, and I said, "Whoa, hold on. If you want to know more about this, like, pull up a picture," because we had watched all the episodes of The Mandalorian up to that point. And I said, "Pull up a picture of, look up Clint Eastwood, Man with No Name." And I said, "Look up a picture of him, and then tell me if the backdrop, the colors of his clothing that he's wearing, tell me that doesn't look exactly like the Mandalorian when he's got kind of his red armor and his, just to hold the cape, the everything else." And I said, "Tell me it doesn't look exactly like that." So we're driving somewhere, and he's looking on his phone. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's pretty much exactly the same." I said, "Yeah, it's big," and that's why I was trying to explain to him, to John, my son, was this is a space western.
Yeah.
Like, you have not seen a lot of these movies, and I haven't seen them in a while, so I got to go back before.
Go to Pat's house. He's got all.
I go to Pat's house because you got them. I don't recall if they would be okay for a 12-year-old.
Interesting you bring those up.
Yeah.
I don't want to...
Did you watch them with your kids?
No.
Okay.
But I watched them...
Because it's been a while since I've seen them.
I watched them when I was 10. With my dad and my grandpa, I watched them.
That's fine then.
I don't think I should have watched them when I was 10. I don't know if I watched the edited for TV one. They're all R-rated.
Yeah.
I just watched the first one, and there's violence.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like, it's just violence.
Yeah.
It gets pretty violent.
Yeah.
Now, the difference between that violent and something that I've seen in a PG-13 movie of today,
right?
It equates.
Right.
So definitely watch first. But
okay.
It's
okay.
So the Mandalorian is our Star Wars Western.
Yes.
And to date, we are 3 episodes in.
Yeah, we are.
And what glorious episodes they have been. To put it lightly.
The words. Yeah.
The sentence making right now is not working because there's so much to say.
I don't know. This may be, outside of the original trilogy,
the most excited you've been about Star Wars?
Maybe the most excited I've been about Star Wars.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
This show has me excited about the Star Wars universe like I haven't felt in I don't know how long. A long time. Like,
that's a feeling I've not felt in a long time.
How careful they've been leads me to believe that there's so much more on its way. And the secrets that they've had to keep about this show, the fact that here comes your first spoiler, everybody.
Yeah, by the way, spoilers. So Pat, you're gonna.
Should I just step out and come back, or are you trying to dance around spoilers for our listening audience?
Well, no, we're probably because we're gonna start talking.
Oh, well then I'll go busy myself.
Do you want us to text you when we're all done? Or?
Yeah, you could do that. Okay. I'll go busy myself with the fans.
Yeah, because we have a few things to talk about.
Yeah, no, I get it.
You're probably not going to want to hear.
I'm excited, and when I re-listen to this, I'll make sure to fast forward like 30-second bits and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
it's gonna be more than 30 seconds.
Might be more than that.
This is just getting me more excited to finally sit down and watch it.
Might be more than that.
Well,
all right. Okay. We'll see you in a bit.
All right, see you in a bit. And the door is closed. And spoilers.
No, okay.
Holy.
Okay.
Okay.
The first reveal. Well, before we get to the big reveal at the end of the first episode, let's talk briefly about the possible cameo.
Barbecued Kowakian monkey lizards. Oh, I thought that's what you wanted to talk about. Okay.
No. The possible
cameo
if they taste funny. In the background of the Mandalorian hovel, if you will. You don't think it's Boba Fett?
It's not him. I think Boba Fett's dead.
You think so?
Yeah.
You don't think they're saving that for a really great moment in this first season?
No, because, and I'll tell you why. Because Boba Fett's dead, and Disney has now. Let me consider how I want to say this because. Okay. Boba Fett is dead. In 3 35, 40-minute-ish episodes, Disney has already created a character that is leaps and bounds more interesting and cooler than Boba Fett.
Should we just jump to that character?
Because, I mean the Mandalorian.
Oh,
like the Mandalorian himself.
I thought you meant the reveal of the character at the end of the first episode.
We can get there in just a second.
The Mandalorian himself is like a phenomenal character.
Yes,
one of the greatest things.
Because when you really think, I mean, and still Boba Fett is cool. Like as a kid, it was like, oh my God,
I always
awesome.
thought he went out like a punk.
Right.
I was really disappointed, like in how he was killed off.
You really don't get to see him
quote
in
unquote
action.
air fingers, because we don't know air quotes.
Right.
Killed off.
The only thing that we know is that he has this reputation for being this outstanding bounty hunter, but at the same time, you don't see that in the movies.
Mm-mm.
Like, what does he really do to show that he is one of the greatest bounty hunters in the galaxy? Nothing. So he can hide on the back of a Star Destroyer. Good for you. He tracks him down to Cloud City. Doesn't even actually do anything.
He let
Cloud
Vader
City.
do the work.
He let Vader and the Imperials do all the work. Then he's got him in his block of carbonite, puts him on a ship, flies him to Jabba's palace, and he's sitting there flirting with dancers the entire time until, like a chump, he ends up getting accidentally whacked in the jetpack. I hate it when that happens. And then ends up falling in the Sarlacc and gives the Sarlacc indigestion.
For every time I've been accidentally whacked in the jetpack.
Yeah, you'd have a dime at least. So as much as Boba Fett is cool, and that doesn't mean I'm like sell all my Boba Fett action figures and all that stuff, but
I still have my autographed one on display in my man cave, signed by Jeremy Bullock. Anyway, it's right in between my Darth Vader signed by James Earl Jones.
Shut up.
And my Yoda signed by Frank Oz.
Shut up.
Okay. Anyway, continue.
Kill you. And take your signed autograph. May I have the bounty fob for Jeff Mazuka, please?
Here's the thing.
But
if you did that, while Katie would be upset I might be dead, I think she'd be okay with the Star Wars figures leaving the house.
Oh, okay. I will keep that in mind.
So, anyway.
Okay. I will take either Imperial credits, Mon Calamari Flan, or Jeff's autographed photos from Star Wars.
Figures.
Figures. Okay.
Anyway.
So, he's already cooler. Like, we have his backstory. And I think the prequel backstory of Boba Fett is disappointing. Because there were like fan fiction backstories and other.
Yeah.
I think there had been a backstory kind of created back in the day with comics and other stuff.
I just watched Attack of the Clones.
And we have to because we've been going through.
And I had that moment where I really wish, and it would have been awfully gruesome, but when Boba picks up the helmet, if all of a sudden Jango's head just falls out in front of him.
I want it to sound like cranberry sauce coming out of the can at Thanksgiving.
Very timely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Mandalorian, we don't know anything about his background. We get flashbacks to something traumatic happened in his childhood that sent him on this path to join the Mandalore.
Battle droids. Because some people are like, oh, maybe the Empire came, but I'm like, he's old enough that this could have been like pre-Empire, maybe. But that'll be the interesting piece because so this is taking place 25 years after Revenge of the Sith. So let's say he's, I don't know, 30, 35 even. Let's say he's 35.
35 years after Revenge of the Sith.
So this is 25 years after Revenge of the Sith. So let's say he's 35-ish years old. So if Revenge of the Sith, he's about 10, that jives with the kid that we see in these flashbacks. Maybe like 8 to 10 years old, somewhere around there. So and you see super battle droids in the scenes where his village is being attacked or whatever. That fits it in the Clone Wars time period. The new season of the Clone Wars cartoon that's coming up on Disney Plus, I think it's coming out spring or fall of this next year.
I think spring.
I believe one of the episodes featured in that cartoon will be, or a series of episodes, because they always do it in like 3-episode arcs, is the Siege of Mandalore. And Dave Filoni, the guy who created Clone Wars and did all those episodes, he has been a producer. He's been working on The Mandalorian. Right. So I'm looking at that and I'm going, okay.
Interestingly enough, side note, based on the success of The Mandalorian, Filoni, Favreau, and Feige are possibly going to be the new overseers of all things Star Wars.
That's what I heard.
Which, holy crap.
Yeah.
There's a new trilogy being announced.
Thank you, sir.
January.
May I have another?
January, we're going to get a new trilogy announced with director.
You just announced the new trilogy.
I could only
Filoni, Favreau, and Feige. The three Fs.
No, there's going to be a new movie trilogy announcement with a director attached, I guess, already.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Anyway, back to Mandalorian.
But yeah,
we got to move the conversation along, John, because we're running out of time. We still have the Little Mermaid to talk about.
We do?
We do.
Okay, that's fine.
So,
unless she's secretly an underwater Mandalorian, I don't care.
One of the things I really like about the way the show is shot, how well the Mandalorian character can emote. Mm-hmm. You never see his face, but man, do you feel the feelings? He is able to connect, and you feel everything he does, especially in that episode 3 when he has that moment that I need to go back.
Mm-hmm. Well, and he emotes. I was reading an interview that was done. I think it was Business Insider did an interview a few days ago with, and I'm probably going to say the name wrong, Ludwig Göransson, the composer. Because, oh my God, let's talk about the music. But what he said, and I don't remember.
Maybe we should have just done a Mandalorian show.
I know, we probably should have. I think what he said was, when he was talking about the music of this, is you've got a TV show where you have a character that, as part of his religion, will not remove his helmet. So we may never see him remove his helmet, and I think that's totally fine. But you need to show that emotion in some way. And he said, I knew that my challenge as a composer was the music has to be what helps emote that character. And so that's where I think the music in this show is just outstanding. It's all on Spotify. They've put each chapter's music on Spotify. Every time a new one comes out, I've been adding them all to a playlist and just listening to it over and over and over again. And it brings the spaghetti westerns in. It's got the one thing I have loved is, and my son John caught it first, is Kylo Ren's theme keeps getting played. Every time one of the Imperials shows up, it's the dun 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 dun. Which we'll get into speculation here in just a moment, because
big reveal.
Talk fast. Big reveal.
Big reveal at the end of episode 1. This bounty, this 50-year-old bounty that they're after, is actually a younger Yoda species character. What the hell? Where? Why? How? We don't know any of that.
And he's so freaking cute.
I want one for Christmas. That's all I want for Christmas is a baby Yoda.
Yep.
Real life. I already have 2 kids and they're driving me crazy. Yep. I'd be willing to take on a third life form if that was it.
Yeah. My daughter Nora listens to some other podcasts, and I guess they were doing a show on cuteness aggression. They're like, when you see something cute, you're like, oh, I just want to squeeze it and like destroy it. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Cuteness aggression is like, you can control your emotions. Like, just chill out a little bit. But she saw Baby Yoda. She's like, Dad, I understand cuteness aggression now. I just want it. Like, okay, I do too, but calm down.
I have 2 theories.
Yeah.
The first one I had to mathematically eliminate because it didn't make sense. In watching, so I'm rewatching all the movies.
Yoda and Yaddle?
No.
Oh.
I didn't want to go there.
Okay.
Rewatching all the movies, getting ready for Rise of Skywalker.
It gets lonely in the temple.
Gross.
I completely forgot.
Yeah, you did. Episode 2.
Yeah.
Yoda goes to Kamino to visit the cloning operation. And I thought, what if, while he's there, a little cloning action takes place? Mathematically, it doesn't work out.
Right.
The years don't line up.
Right.
So,
because this child would have been born 25 years before.
This child would have been born 8 years before before episode 1.
Correct.
So that didn't work out. So I had to eliminate that as an option. The other theory I have is more of a retcon theory, that Favreau and maybe Abrams are kind of involved in retconning a story arc from Empire.
Okay.
When Luke leaves Dagobah, Ben says, this boy was our only hope. And Yoda follows it up with, there's another. What if they're retconning it that this baby creature, instead of Leia, instead of even Rey, this is the other that Yoda was talking about? Because episode 2 of The Mandalorian, we find out the Force is strong with this child. So all that we know is it's a Yoda-type character with an incredibly strong handle on the Force.
And an incredibly strong handle on napping afterwards.
Well, it takes a lot out of you, apparently.
Right. I mean, it took me a lot out of just watching the episode. So here's my speculation.
Episode 3, you get an awesome battle between the Mandalore and
with a Rocketeer callback too. At the very end, when he's flying alongside and he gives him the salute. He's like, I gotta get me one of those. I'm like, yeah, you do, and so do I. So here's what I got. Dr. Pershing, the doctor that comes in when the Mandalorian is getting his job from I forget what the guy's name is, but the client. He goes in there. Werner Herzog, that actor. I love his voice. Bounty hunting is a complicated
John, running out
profession.
of time.
I know, but it's okay. Dr. Pershing has a patch on his arm. His clothing looks like the same clothing that is worn by the Kaminoans on Kamino. So he is a cloning doctor, is my guess. My guess is the Empire has some kind of plan. Palpatine had some kind of a plan to get himself back to life, get himself a body, get himself healed, whatever. And they're going to use clones to try to do that. Hence why they want the Baby Yoda type character, because you see him the first few times, like he's trying to reach up and heal the Mandalorian when he's hurt. So you can tell he's got some kind of propensity for healing. They also live a very long time. So my thought is Palpatine had some kind of a plan that if I die, I know about this child, or I know something, I want you to find it, I want you to use it, I want you to clone it, I want you to somehow create me a body that is steeped in the Force, but long-living, so that I can come back. Now, here's what I'm thinking is, I don't know if we'll see this Yoda thing grow up at any point. I don't know if we'll see it ever again.
I hope he shows up in episode 9.
Well, see, that's
all
the
I'm
thing.
saying.
My thought is...
That's not all I'm saying.
Keep
going.
I know. My thought is that by the Mandalorian rescuing him and taking him away from all that, that's why it takes Palpatine from 5 years after Return of the Jedi all the way to jumping forward, whatever it is, 25, 30 years, to episode 9. That's why he can't come back until then, is because his major plan
the Mandalorian foiled his
plan, and so it took longer to come back. That's also my thought, because every time you meet this Imperial guy, I forget his name, the client, it plays Kylo Ren's music. It's got that kind of First Order kind of vibe to it. So that's my thing. I think this ties into. I think it ties back to the Clone Wars.
I hope that they're using it as a tool to help tie the older trilogies to this new trilogy.
I think it ties back to the Clone Wars, because I think you're going to see some. I think you're going to see some Easter eggs in the Siege of Mandalore episodes from the Clone Wars cartoon when they do the final season of it coming up next year.
I started watching the cartoon.
It'll tie into episode 9
as it relates to the overall story arc of the movies.
Yeah,
and I'm trying to watch the episodes in chronological order. I don't know if I'll have enough time to do all that.
You're not going to have enough time. So I started to try to do that too.
I may just skip that.
Yeah.
But anywho, so that's The Mandalorian, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, man.
Cat just came back into the room.
I did. Timing was good.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
When you watch this, I just expect my phone to explode.
Yeah.
Whoa, now I know what you're talking about. And
yeah, no, I mean, even when you see this, even before...
Regardless of listening to this conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
When you finally watch Mandalorian, our phones are going to explode.
So awesome.
We're going to feel Pat.
I feel like it will be like... It'll be like the first time you saw the Millennium Falcon in The Force Awakens.
Right. This will be when I was so excited for Rogue One, but it was just the motion picture art, and then there was a whole trailer that blew my mind.
You're like, oh, guys, that was amazing.
So,
what was amazing? The poster!
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Okay.
All right, now we've got like 5 minutes for Little Mermaid.
Little Mermaid, here we go!
I want to be... part of the world, right? Yeah. I started singing all the Disney
Interestingly
songs.
enough, that song is part of the story of the saving of Disney animation.
And I have a funny quick story about that, about the saving of the Disney animation. And I mentioned to the kids, I'm like, "Yeah, we're doing the Little Mermaid podcast, and and I said, this is the one that kind of saved Disney." And we had just seen Frozen 2, and all of a sudden from the backseat, I go, "Wait, Disney's in trouble?" I'm like, "No, it's fine." And they're like, "Oh, so wait, Frozen 2 saved Disney?" No, not so much. It was just the animation thing. This was back in the day. They're like, "Wait, Disney's losing money on animation?" I'm like, "Guys, Disney is okay and not losing any money anywhere, any place."
Hold on.
Anyways, so it was fun that the kids were reacting.
Disney actually is in a little bit of trouble because Galaxy's Edge has way underperformed. Way underperformed, and they are losing money on these new theme park areas. The hope is that with the Rise of the Resistance attractions opening in Florida on December 5th and California in January, it's going to bring the people in. but I've been checking wait times for the Millennium Falcon ride, which has been reported to be kind of underwhelming.
Okay.
I don't care.
Wait times on a daily basis, you're standing in line 30, 35, 40 minutes in an ongoing line. So you're not even standing there. You're pretty much walking in and you're experiencing all around you, getting on the ride, and then you're done.
Yeah.
Disney's hoping that they can rework some things and figure some things out to start getting the people into the parks. Anywho, so Disney's not completely out of the water, but in terms of movie making, they're doing just fine.
They're just fine. They'll open up one coffer and pay for the, I mean, it's, I know that takes a lot of work. I don't want to just dismissively say, oh, they'll figure it out. But since they own the world.
John's doing math. 1 + 2 + 2 + 1.
All right.
1 + 1 + 2 + 1.
No, I was trying to figure out how many times I can ride the Millennium Falcon ride in a row in a single day, if the wait times are only half an hour.
Yeah, I mean,
I will just tell my family goodbye.
Yeah.
And
the contingencies. Wow, I'm talking
judicial system.
The contingencies they put into place for opening Galaxy's Edge at both theme parks that they haven't even come close to needing has been a little frightening on the business end of Disney. So, from what I'm hearing, they're retooling some things. And
so here we go, friends. Replace the Resistance and First Order stuff with Mandalorian.
Maybe. Maybe.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm sure they will. But the problems of Galaxy's Edge are a story for another time. It's time for The Little Mermaid.
The Little Mermaid was released on the 17th of November, 1989, with a rating of G and a runtime of 1 hour, 23 minutes. Directors for this one were Ron Clements and John Musker. Clements also did Aladdin and Moana. Musker also did Aladdin and Moana. Producers were Howard Ashman, who died in 1991, and John Musker. Ashman also did Beauty and the Beast. Musker also did Treasure Planet. Writers on this one, lots of different writers. John Musker, Ron Clements, Hans Christian Andersen, of course, has a credit in here. Howard Ashman did additional dialogue. Garrett Graham did additional dialogue. Samuel Graham did additional dialogue. And Chris Hubble did additional dialogue. Musker also did writing for Hercules. Clements did The Black Cauldron. Ashman did Little Shop of Horrors. Garrett Graham did Oliver and Company. Samuel Graham did Oliver and Company. And Hubble did Oliver and Company. Cinematography was done by Mark A. Hester, who did the film editing. He also did Aladdin and How to Train Your Dragon movies. Music was done by Alan Menken, who also did Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast. Budget was $40 million. Box office was $233 million. Reviews, the critics gave it, Rotten Tomatoes critics give it a 93%, Rotten Tomatoes audience an 88%, IMDb gives it a 76, Letterboxd a 74, and CinemaScore did not have a score for this one. Renee Auberjonois, I know I always mess this one. Renee Auberjonois, I think, played Poisson, played Chef, played Chef Louis. He was in Boston Legal and Star Trek DS9. Christopher Daniel Barnes played Prince Eric. He was in the Brady Bunch movie and Spider-Man the Animated Series that ran from 94 to 98. Jodie Benson played Ariel. She was in the Toy Story movies and Wreck-It Ralph 2. Pat Carroll played Ursula. She was in Freedom Writers and Songcatcher. Patty Edwards, who died in 1999, played Flotsam and Jetsam. She was in Hercules, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Buddy Hackett died in 2003, played Scuttle, was in Scrooged and The Love Bug. Jason Marin played Flounder. He was in Back to the Future and Rockadoodle. Kenneth Mars, who died in 2011, played Triton. He was in The Producers, the 1967 version, and Young Frankenstein. Edie McClurg played Carlotta. She was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Will Ryan played the Seahorse. He was in The Land Before Time and An American Tale. Ben Wright, who died in 1989, played Grimsby. He was in The Sound of Music and 101 Dalmatians. And Samuel Wright played Sebastian. He was in Dinosaur and House of Mouse. Here is the trailer, and we'll be back in just a moment.
For over 50 years, Walt Disney has turned classic stories into classic animated motion pictures. Now the tradition continues as one of the world's greatest stories becomes the newest Disney motion picture classic, The Little Mermaid.
I want to be where the people are. I want to see them dancing. Up where they walk, up where they run, up where they stay all day in the sun.
It's the story of Ariel, a beautiful young mermaid who wants to become human.
He's very handsome, isn't he?
I don't know, he looks kind of hairy and slobbery to me.
Not that one. The other one.
And she'll strike a bargain with a powerful sea witch.
Have we got a deal?
To make her dream come true.
What I want from you is...
Your voice.
My voice?
You've got it, sweet cakes.
Ariel's been turned into a human.
Have you lost your senses completely? The human world, it's a mess.
Now, the Little Mermaid is exploring the mysteries of her strange new world.
What's your name? What's wrong? You can't speak?
But to regain her voice, the sea witch's spell must be broken.
Move it! We got an emergency here!
Broken by the kiss of true love.
Kiss the girl.
It's Walt Disney Pictures' 28th full-length animated motion picture, featuring dozens of delightful new Disney characters and 7 magical new songs.
Sha-la-la, sha-la-la, don't stop now. Don't try to hide it out. You wanna kiss the girl.
This holiday season, share the wonder and magic of a very special entertainment event. A fantastic adventure above the waves and under the sea.
Under the sea! Under the sea! When the sun begins to make music to me. Yeah, we in luck here, down in the muck here, under the sea.
Walt Disney Pictures, The Little Mermaid.
Let's dissect The Little Mermaid.
Oh. I feel like I feel like going to Red Lobster for lunch.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me start by saying this.
Please do.
No pun intended when I typed up my notes, but looking at it now, hilarious. Disney animation was floundering.
I see what
you did there.
At the time that I typed this, I wasn't even thinking that.
Something's a little fishy about that.
Disney animation was floundering. Disney animation was in a horrible spot in the 80s. This was considered the dark ages, or the dark age of Disney animation. They could not secure a hit movie. Starting with the Aristocats in the 70s, including then Robin Hood, Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, The Rescuers, The Fox and the Hound, The Black Cauldron, The Gray Mouse Detective, Oliver and Company. The only one of those that was seemingly somewhat successful was, I believe, The Rescuers. Okay. Everything else was failing, and they had no way or no idea of how to turn this around. So during this time, Michael Eisner is brought in by Roy Disney, the nephew of Walt, to kind of become the chairman of the Disney company. Bigwig at Paramount, knows a lot about movie making. He steps in to take over. Frank Wells is brought in from Warner Brothers as the COO of Disney. The two of them together are an exceptional team, and they keep each other in checks and balances, and seemingly start to work to turn Disney around. On the back burner is Disney Animation. Roy Disney, again the nephew of Walt, says to Michael Eisner, "Can I have the animation studio? Can I kind of work with animation, see what we can do there?"
So cool.
Eisner and Wells, not having any background in animation, okay. Whatever.
Why not?
Whatever you want.
Probably going to sell it anyway, so go ahead.
One of Eisner's other first appointees is Jeffrey Katzenberg, also from Paramount, and he puts Katzenberg in charge of the film division of Disney. And with that, he's tasked, really, fix the mess with animation. It is an awful mess. Animation got so looked over and so not thought about. Like, these guys, they weren't animation people. They didn't get it. They didn't get the history. In the mid-'80s, the animation department gets kicked out of their building, the same building they've been using since making Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The history of this building, the hallways where Walt walked, they get kicked out of the building. Building gets renovated to turn into offices for the movie division and some of their bigger movie stars they're recording in the 80s. Robin Williams, Bette Midler, Lily Tomlin. And you have this animation department sitting there going, are we out of a job? Literally. Animators didn't know what was happening to their jobs. They get shuffled into a warehouse off property.
And I wonder what they're working on. You know, like if there's no new shows and programming, I wonder what. Do you know what I'm saying?
At this time they're working on Great Mouse Detective.
Oh, so there was a project in the works
Well,
as this.
Kind of.
Okay.
They have things to do.
Okay.
They're trying to figure out some things. Black Cauldron, monumental flop at the box office. So they're pitching ideas. Great Mouse Detective is a story that gets pitched, and Katzenberg and Eisner are at the pitch meeting, never really having been in a pitch meeting for animation before. So they're being talked through storyboards, and this meeting lasts a couple hours, and they take them through the whole story. Oh, okay, yeah, we'll go talk about it. And as they're leaving this meeting, the two of them have a conversation. You know what in the hell we just saw? No, I really don't. Well, we got to pay these guys whether they work on something or not, so may as well pay them to work on something. Hence, Great Mouse Detective.
Okay.
Originally, this movie was supposed to be called Basil of Baker Street.
Okay.
There was another person brought in, Pete Schneider, brought in as the VP of animation. One of the things that Pete Schneider does is he decides to rename this movie. He sends out a memo. It's no longer Basil Baker Street. It's The Great Mouse Detective. Basil Baker Street, it's going to be too confusing for our audiences. Great Mouse Detective. Well, this upset animation people quite a bit. So a fake memo circulated as if it was from him saying, we're now going to rename all of our movies. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is now going to be called The Girl Who Gets Helped by Seven Little People in the Forest. And there was another one. Pinocchio is now going to be called The Wooden Boy Who Becomes Real. Well, this pissed him off quite a great deal, and he's, knocking heads. Who did this? I demand to know. Animation department sticks together. We're not saying. Now, as this is going on, Who Framed Roger Rabbit starts getting talked about, and Spielberg's involved. So now Disney really wants to get in bed with this because Spielberg was involved with Land Before Time, and those movies are getting successful or reaching success, whereas Disney isn't. But they outsource the animation. They don't do the animation for Who Framed Roger Rabbit at Disney. It's done in a studio in London. Well, again, this is another nail in the coffin of Disney animation. Why don't you trust us? Why aren't you letting us do what it is we do? There's a lot of turning over of the department. You got an older group of animators, younger group of animators, different philosophies going on. They seemingly can't come together. One of the biggest problems that happened was, I don't remember which Disney movie it was, which animated movie it was that came out, but it was beaten at the box office by the Care Bears movie. And that's when Disney was like, we may need to be done with this.
I think that might have been Black Cauldron.
Could have been.
Yeah.
Could have been. So they're sitting around coming up with ideas. What do we do? What story do we want to tell? And someone throws out, what about The Little Mermaid? Let's tell this story of The Little Mermaid. Yeah, why not? We have nothing else to do. If we're going to go down, may as well go down fighting with something.
And I read somewhere they'd owned the rights to that since the 40s.
So here's what's interesting.
So they had it, and they would think they were going to work on it in the 40s, but they shelved it.
Walt had his eye on a lot of properties from the get-go, from Snow White days. A lot of properties that came along later on, even after his death. Walt wanted to work on. And here's what's fascinating about Walt. He lived in a world 10 years, at least 10 years, ahead of his time. And he saw writing on the wall where no one else did. And he knew now's not the right time. I want to do this story, now's not the right time. This story I want, now's not the right time. And that applies to all of the theme parks. That applies to everything that he did. He knew how to pick his moments. So they decide, let's work on Little Mermaid. Why not? But there's something special about this film. And this is what I wanted to talk about. This is why I wanted to wait for this episode, is because this movie revitalizes Disney animation. So what is it about this movie that works? Why is this one successful after years of failing animated movies?
Well, and it's funny because it's like, this was a smash hit.
Absolutely.
I remember watching this. Now I'm trying to think of, well, it's the 89 movie, and so I'm thinking of the age that I was, and I remember seeing it. I remember the songs. I remember this, right? I don't remember any Disney, like The Great Mouse Detective, Black Cauldron, all those that you mentioned.
They're forgettable.
Well, I don't even know if I saw them. So I mean, this one was a smash hit.
I all those you just listed, I saw them on video.
Okay.
Like Black Cauldron, we might have even had a copy of that one, but I know that we rented it a couple times on video, and Great Mouse Detective, and some of those others, we'd always rent those on video. We'd go to Blockbuster and rent them there. This is the first Disney movie that I can remember going to see in the theater. Like, of all those other ones, I don't recall if we saw them in the theater or not, but this one I remember vividly going to the theater and seeing this together with the family. And I don't know, it seems like this one, maybe the music is, maybe the songs are of a better quality.
That's definitely part of it.
Yeah.
Is the music is more memorable.
Where the other one, and I everything, and I'm glad you said that, and everything I was going to say, oh, well, there's memorable characters. There's memorable, then I'm like, I don't know. We saw Black Cauldron for the podcast, and I read the book, but I didn't see the movie until we did the podcast.
Out of that list of movies, Oliver and Company is the only one that is actually a movie musical.
Okay, that was going to be my question. Right.
The others have some songs in them, but nothing where you would look at it and say, well, clearly it follows the format of the Disney animated movie.
And this seems to be the
so this is part of the success of this movie is they go back to what they know, including music to tell the story. Okay. With that, which is what they tried to do with Oliver and Company, but they went the rock and roll route. They brought in Billy Joel, and they had Bette Midler to help write and perform. With this, you have Alan Menken and the late Howard Ashman. Howard Ashman is a Broadway guy. He's a Broadway composer. He's a Broadway show writer. He was heavily involved with a lot of hits on Broadway, including Little Shop of Horrors. I think, for me, that's what helps sell this music, is you have a guy that knows music, that knows using music to tell stories, which is what Broadway is all about.
Right.
You have him steering the direction of the music in this movie. And you have a lot of people saying he had the same energy as Walt. It was like seeing Walt living in a different person.
So you have, the great man theory of history. You had the right guy that was in the right place at the right, to make a thing. But then also, and I'm going to defer to your knowledge and skill, obviously Broadway and Disney and all that. Is this a revitalization of Disney animated movies, or is this the first animated Broadway musical? And were movies in the past, like, I don't know, were other Disney movies in the past animated Broadway musicals?
Other Disney's in the past, other Disney movies in the past, animated movies, relied on music to tell the story, to help progress the story, which is what musicals do. Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty. What do all those stories have in common? They're all fairy tales.
Right.
That's the next piece of this puzzle. Little Mermaid goes back to let's tell a fairy tale. Let's tell the story of a fairy tale. That's what we do.
As a Broadway musical.
So now you have the right type of story with the right type of person leading the music to help tell part of that story.
Which it didn't after Little Mermaid came out, wasn't it Rescuers Down Under, and it did not do well because it was not a musical? Well, I don't want to say because it wasn't a musical, but I would imagine that if people saw Little Mermaid and they're like, whoa, this is great, this is amazing, then the next movie that comes out has, I believe, no songs written for it. And then
Rescuers Down Under didn't do well.
Right.
It underperformed the first weekend, and Katzenberg, still not really understanding animation, says, we're not putting any more money into this, let's pull all advertising for this movie. So he didn't even give the movie a chance to rebound.
So you have the great person leading it. We're returning to the formula of the animated Broadway musical as opposed to animated movie. And now, I don't know if this is going to change, but you got to have the guys up on top, or the people up on top that are supporting it and saying,
you need the buy-in.
Yeah, we're going to support what you're doing. You might be a little crazy, but
so the driving force of this movie ended up being Howard Ashman, this composer, and explaining how these songs were going to work and why they were important to the movie. So in the pitch meeting, you have he and Alan Menken playing the music to help tell the story. And Ashman is this great idea guy. So much so, he's the one that came up with the idea of Sebastian being Jamaican. They had the crab character in mind, and he was like, Why not make him Jamaican?
Wasn't he going to be British?
Yeah, I think it was going to be British.
British, yeah.
Let's make him Jamaican. Whole other type of movie, or a whole other type of music you can introduce
because
in the movie, and you get to his song "Under the Sea."
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can use underwater creatures as instruments,
right?
And you can feature different types of fish and animals as part of this ensemble of music to celebrate what you have under the sea.
Now our choices are opening doors for
so
more
Howard,
awesomeness.
Howard Ashman was a visionary,
so cool.
And he used music to show it.
That's awesome. Gentlemen, I hate to say it, but I must take my leave of you. I look forward to hearing the rest of the discussion on The Little Mermaid, especially, and I've said this before, but Jeff, your insights on Broadway and Disney are very awesome. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. Glad we got a chance to discuss.
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. John,
Happy Thanksgiving.
glad everything is going well. Happy Thanksgiving. And best to all the family.
Yours too.
And we'll catch up with you guys more later. Looking forward to hearing the rest of the comments.
Yeah.
So, now you have the right people working on this story to tell. Unfortunately, you still don't have the buy-in from Katzenberg. Katzenberg still doesn't get it. So much so that they do an unfinished screening of this movie with a test audience. And part of your world doesn't work. And Katzenberg says, let's cut it from the movie. Just get rid of it. It didn't work. And it took a number of people fighting with Katzenberg to keep this song in there because everyone else realized this is the song. Mm-hmm. This is the third or fourth song in a show. If you look at how Broadway shows are put together, this is the longing song, the wanting song.
I want song.
This is the song that makes this person or this character who you root for in the story. You have to keep this in there. Glenn Keane was the animator who finally was the one who got Katzenberg to leave it. And his argument was, it's not the song, it's everything surrounding it that we have to fix. Glenn Keane, who's also the son of the late Bill Keane, who was the Family Circle cartoonist. Fun story there. So you have everyone finally getting that buy-in to tell this story. You have animation that looks gorgeous. You have characters that aren't caricatures, but more human-like. Especially the human characters. They look like humans. The animals, the fish, while a little exaggerated, all look like fish. Flounder looks like a fish. Sebastian looks like a crab. Scuttle looks like a seagull. Flotsam and Jetsam look like eels. Ursula looks like an octopus. So there's that sense of realism to telling the fairy tale story. All of that is what comes together to make The Little Mermaid the success that it became. The thing that said, animation's not dead yet. We've been doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So that's what I got for you. Now we can have a discussion, a brief discussion, given our time restraints at this point.
Yeah.
But
no, we went to go see this movie. It was a few years ago. They put it back out on video, or they put it back out in theaters. Maybe it was for the 25th anniversary. It might have been. I think they put it back out around about the time. It was very close to the time of my daughter Nora's birthday. And we just happened to look and see that I think the weekend of her birthday, Little Mermaid was going to be in theaters. And we're like, we're going. So we went. And we already like this movie. Like, we've seen this movie before. We like this movie. My wife and I have, we don't have all the songs memorized, but we have Les Poissons memorized. That's one of our favorite songs in the whole thing. And went to go see this in the theater. That was probably, of all the movies I've seen in the theater, that's one of the ones that I feel like was the most fun, because people in the families in the theater were singing along to all the songs. Like, it was like you were at a show. It was like you were at a concert. And every time a song came on, so that's why, to me, it's the music that really made this movie. The animation is beautiful, like you said, too.
The music is emotional.
Yeah.
And that's what they got so right. That's what Ashman brought to the table. The music is so emotional that you can't help but be compelled by it.
Yeah.
Whether it's an up or a down, that Part of Your World song is it's such a driving force, and it's such a great moment in the film because of how well it's controlled. You get a lot of the want and longing and anticipation from the character of Ariel,
in a very subdued way, and telling us that she's had to keep these desires so secret, but they're so huge and there's so much of what she wants that this is the struggle for her. If that doesn't make a compelling character, I don't know what does. And then you have the other characters that help really round out this this story. You have Sebastian as the wanting to do the right thing, loyal to the king, wanting to protect. You have Flounder that's willing to do what he has to help his best friend. You have Scuttle, who is the comedic relief. You have the overbearing father, who you get moments of him wanting to do what's right, but he doesn't have a clue what he's doing. And then you have the villain, a great villain archetype in Ursula. It's been a long time since we've seen a villain who has the darkness, but the charm. There's something charming about her that allows Ariel to go to her. It's not like the Horned King from Black Cauldron, who's terrifying. There's something about this character that's sneaky and underhanded and charismatic that brings Ariel to her and provides Ariel with a sense of comfort that she hasn't felt or had prior.
I will say, one of the last times that we watched The Little Mermaid,
now streaming on Disney Plus.
Yes, along with everything else in the universe. And normally I don't key in on some of these things, but this last time, the character of, and maybe because this was one of the first times, I've watched it a couple times in the last 10 to 15 years, and maybe because this is the first time that I'm watching it as a father, Triton bothers me. Like, he makes me just when you call him an overbearing father, this last time,
puts it lightly.
Well, right, and this last time watching it, I'm like, oh, yikes. I don't know that I quite, as a kid, picked up on, this is pretty intense. Like, you're a kid watching this. I almost worry about a kid watching this and seeing a father reacting in that way. And I want to be careful how I say this, because the first thought in my head was, it almost acts like it's demonizing parents. And I want to be careful saying that, because I don't really think that that's Disney's intention, is to demonize parents. But at the same time,
interesting,
when Triton has his massive fit and starts destroying her stuff, and I think even like the background changes, doesn't change to like, for a moment, doesn't change to like almost fiery colors, and he gets very, shadows cover him, and he's very dark and scary, and he looks like a villain at that point. And I'm like, yikes, I didn't pick up on this
from
before.
From a storytelling standpoint, that's helping Ariel connect with kids.
Right.
One of the biggest audience demographics...
And pushes her into Ursula's arms later on.
One of the biggest demographic audiences that Disney lost was their teenagers.
Yeah.
And they wanted to get their teenagers back.
Having her be 16. And
having her be 16 and having a father that doesn't understand her.
Yeah.
What teenager's not going to understand that and connect with that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the equation right there. From a storytelling standpoint, also keep in mind, you have a father that's raising kids by himself. Mom's gone.
Right.
Assuming that Ursula had something to do with it. That's my assumption. Ursula had something to do with...
Well, I thought she ran off with a sea turtle, but...
No, maybe. Well, that could be too.
It's those sea turtles from Finding Nemo.
Whoa.
Dude. Totally stole your wife, dude. Anyway. That's a different movie.
So you have the single father trying his best with 7 daughters to figure out how to raise them. The other 6 seem to be doing okay. It's the youngest one that he's struggling with, who has this desire for so much more that... No, you know what? Mom... Now, just think about the story. Mom was killed by humans.
Oh, that's right.
That's why he doesn't want Ariel to go up to the human world and stay away from the surface.
Yeah.
It's dangerous up there.
Yeah.
And it's implied that's where Mom went. Mom got too close and something happened to her. But I get what you're saying about the dad becomes frightening to a point.
That scene when he's destroying all of her stuff in her, we're going to call that a grotto or whatever it is, where she's collected all of
it's her trove.
Yeah. Where she's collected all of her, above world.
Treasures untold.
Right.
How many wonders can one cavern hold?
Who's it's and what's it's plenty. Who's it's and what's it's galore. Yeah. But yeah, when he's going through and destroying everything, and that scene in particular, this last time watching it, I'm going, whoa, that's yikes, buddy.
So is it just is it a frustrated
Tone it down a little
father,
bit.
or is it Disney really trying to say teens? We
I think
we
it's
understand
both.
where you're coming
Yeah,
from.
I think it's both. And watching it from the perspective of a parent, I'm like, yikes, is that? I hope I don't ever do that to my kids. Like, if I get angry about something, and this is an extreme example. If I ever take a trident to my kids' stuff, then first of all, that's awesome. Where did I get the trident? You killed a guy with a trident.
I saw that. I might want to lay low.
Lay low for a while, like under the water. That scene in particular was the one thing that struck me this time as I'm seeing this differently than I've ever seen it before, because I'm watching it now as an adult and as a father.
But I think that's the scene that gets the teenagers on board.
Because I'm not connecting with the 16-year-old Ariel. I'm sitting there going, oh my God, would you just quit whining?
We get it. You want to
put your phone away and quit whining. And yeah. No. Sebastian's my buddy. Like, he's my favorite. I feel like sometimes, like, his...
I think Sebastian has a lot of struggle.
Yeah.
Because he wants to do right by the king.
Right.
But he wants to do right by Ariel.
Right.
And I think he gets that the king is overbearing. And what I love about some of the Triton scenes is after he has his episodes of anger...
And Sebastian, like, flitters in.
Sebastian's there, and you see the Triton struggling.
Yeah.
He goes, God, am I doing the right thing? I think he even says it. Did I do the right thing?
Right.
Did I handle that right?
Right.
And it's like, no, you didn't.
Your Majesty.
But, Sebastian tries to be the voice of reason.
Right.
For both of them.
Yeah. Which is why he's the perfect person to follow her up to the surface world and watch over her in the meantime.
And yeah. Well, not only that, but he's the only one that can.
Right. Yeah.
Flounder would die.
It's not going to work out so well for Flounder.
Scuttle's an idiot.
Little seahorse guy. And, yeah.
The other really dark moment for me is the end with Ursula.
Yeah.
And not only Ursula, like, getting frighteningly huge and really overbearing, but her death.
Yeah.
They show her
getting
impaled.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, Disney animated movies don't show the death of the villain.
Yeah.
Everything is always implied.
Not this time.
This is the first time. Like, they animated the mast of that ship sticking out of the back of her body. What the crap? But there's so much buy-in into the movie at that point that you don't bump on that when you're watching.
Right.
I remember going to see this in the theater, and when the movie ended, I just sat there thinking, that was an experience. All the other the Disney movies that came out before that at the time were, I didn't even go see Oliver and Company. There was no connection there.
Can you get away with that, though? And I'm jumping back to Sleeping Beauty, where at the end he's fighting the dragon. Yeah. So he does stab the dragon with his sword, and you do see that. Is it because Ursula is huge and monstrous, and she's not regular person size?
Maybe.
If she's regular person size, is it much more traumatizing for kids or someone to look at that and see, they just killed a person? Whereas if she's this massive, bigger than life monster, is it more like, no, they just killed Godzilla? You know, you don't. Yeah, that, I mean, you don't humanize. For lack of a better term, you don't humanize.
That could be, or it could be just part of the mindset of, if we're going down, let's go down big.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, if Disney Animation is banking, really, literally banking on this movie to be successful.
Yeah.
You know, do you just put it all out there and see what happens?
Yeah.
Well, clearly that's kind of what they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to their credit and to their good fortune, it worked. Because if this movie didn't work, I don't necessarily know that there would have been a Rescuers Down Under.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I don't. And
well, they probably would have just scrapped animation altogether.
There certainly wouldn't have been a Beauty and the Beast.
No.
And Aladdin.
You wouldn't
and Lion King.
Pixar, and you wouldn't.
Those, like it could have ended everything that was Disney Animation.
Yeah.
But the fact that it worked allowed for the so-called flop of Rescuers Down Under. Going further down the timeline, Beauty and the Beast, they brought Ashman back in. After Little Mermaid won its Oscars, Ashman says to Alan Menken, when you're back in New York, I have to talk to you. We need to talk.
Let's do this again sometime.
No, it wasn't about that.
Okay.
So a couple days later, they meet, and Menken says, what's going on? And Ashman says, well, I'm assuming you know. Know what? Ashman says, I'm HIV positive.
Oh.
So they have a conversation there about he's not going to live long. But they talk him back into coming back for Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm.
And it's some of his visions that help craft the story arc of the Disney animated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do we get into the story? How do we begin?
Yeah.
Ashman says, you show the young prince as a brat.
Mm-hmm.
You make him hateable.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make him hateable so the redemption is that much sweeter at the end. And they take it to the New York Film Festival, unfinished, black and white sketches. And they show it at the New York Film Festival to a standing ovation. And they immediately afterwards, they get in a cab and they go to the hospital where Howard lay dying in a hospital bed. He lost his vision. He couldn't see anything. He was down to about 80 pounds.
Okay.
And they get there and Howard's mom pulls back the bed sheet and they can see the Beauty and the Beast sweatshirt that Howard's wearing. And they tell him all about the reception that this movie got. And one of the guys, as they're leaving the room, leans to Howard Ashman and says, it whispers in his ear, "We did it. Who'd have thunk we could have done it?" And one of Ashman's last words ever spoken were, "I thought we could."
Yeah.
And a few days later, passed away. Never getting to see the finished product of Beauty and the Beast. But this man that was such a visionary and such a knowledge source for music did the same thing with that movie that he did with The Little Mermaid, using the music to correctly tell and advance the story. And in Beauty and the Beast case, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, more when we get to that movie in a couple of years, but you have Belle, very opening song, that's the I Want song. I want more than this life.
Right.
I'm putting it all out there. I want more. That's the formula that works. It's the fairy tale story. That's why Little Mermaid was successful. They woke Sleeping Beauty. That's where the title of this documentary on Disney Plus came from, Waking Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah.
Revitalizing that thing to tell the story and be successful. It's a brilliant documentary.
Yeah.
Everyone, if you have Disney Plus, you have to watch this. And it's a hard look at the failures as well as the successes. And you hear from Eisenberg, or Michael Eisner. You hear from Eisner, this was a mistake. This thing didn't work. We didn't know what we were doing. You hear from Katzenberg, I didn't know what I was up against with animation. We didn't know what we were doing. We were greenlighting things because we had to pay these guys anyway, so may as well make them work on something.
Right.
And I didn't realize that they had a big falling out and couldn't work together after a while, especially after the announcement when Roy Disney and Michael Eisner announced to one of the animated teams, might have been after Mermaid, maybe Beauty and the Beast, we're building you a brand new animation building on property. Katzenberg didn't know anything about it. They never told him about it.
No.
And that was a big slap in the face to him.
That wouldn't go over well.
So there was a lot of dissension amongst the higher-ups, but the animators stayed true to what their mission was and what they wanted to do. And because of their heart and their drive, they were able to create a movie that worked, that was super successful in The Little Mermaid, that revitalized the new renaissance of Disney animation.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the story behind The Little Mermaid and why it was such an important film for the Disney company. Because without it, there probably wouldn't be a Disney animation wing at this point.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know we got to wrap up soon, but I do have. I'm gonna throw out two questions to you. One maybe a simple question. The other one maybe not so simple. Let's start with the simple question. Do you have a favorite song from this movie?
All of them.
Okay. If I made you pick one. If I was that kind of jerk and I made you pick one.
Well, you are that kind of jerk.
I know. It's good to be back.
I like Under the Sea.
Okay.
I think it's a lot of fun. I think that's where they really got to experiment with using music in the movie again. But my go-to song, Kiss the Girl, is really, really good song.
They're all good.
Yeah. But I think
that's given.
The emotional impact of Part of Your World.
Okay.
I think that may be my go-to song in this movie.
Okay.
It is the perfect song to advance the story, and it's like the icing on the cake of the setup. It's the final piece of the setup of the movie. This is what you need to know. Yeah. So I think it would have to be Part of Your World.
Okay.
What about you?
I read...
Other than Les Poissons.
Well, actually, that's that one.
Is that your favorite?
Yeah, that's my favorite. Yeah, just the humor of it, that entire scene.
John Stamos did not do a good job with that in the Little Mermaid live thing that happened.
I didn't even watch
recently.
it. I heard all kinds of bad things about.
It was an experiment
that
worth
failed.
trying, I think, because it was mostly the animated film, and then a lot of the musical sequences were live action.
Okay,
didn't work.
Now they're still working on a live action
They are.
Little Mermaid
Mhm.
for 2022 or 21.
I think 21.
Okay,
which we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
but this is TV experiment.
because that was
didn't work.
that kind of got me a little confused when I heard they're doing Little Mermaid live, like they've done some of these other live shows.
Well, I thought it was going to be the Broadway musical that was adapted from the movie.
Okay.
And the full-on show. I'm like,
Okay.
oh, all right, that'll be
That's
cool.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until like a few days before that I first heard, no, it's animated and live. It's almost like they didn't put that part out there right away. And I was sort of like, what?
Was it a mess and they just didn't want to advertise it?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it certainly wasn't what people expected.
Yeah.
John Stamos as the chef.
Yeah.
Did not. I don't think he bought into it.
Okay.
I think it was more, I'm John Stamos, cheer for me doing this thing, as opposed to I'm morphing into this character and you're not even going to know it's John Stamos.
Right.
Sort of thing.
Right.
As a Broadway or a stage performer should. It shouldn't be stunt casting. It shouldn't be I see you as this, or I see you as you being this person. It should be I see you as this character. When the first time I went to go see Hamilton, Wayne Brady had taken over the role of Aaron Burr.
Yeah.
And I was really worried that it was going to be Wayne Brady being Wayne Brady.
Yeah.
And there was not one moment in that show where I was like, that's Wayne Brady.
That's Wayne Brady, yeah.
He was Aaron Burr.
Yeah.
He respected the role, respected the part, respected the contribution to the show.
Okay.
And I didn't get that sense from John Stamos.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So yes, Les Poissons is my favorite song from them. But like you said, all of them amazing. Okay, last question, and then we'll wrap it up and we'll head on out of here. But maybe a more complicated question.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So the last few podcasts, we've kind of started it off with this question, and we've talked about the history. We've talked about kind of the ups and downs of animation. We've gone into some of the technical stuff. We've talked about the movie itself and the songs and the performances. But how does this movie make you feel? When you watch this movie, how does this movie make you feel?
Hungry for seafood. No. How does it make me...
But yes.
When I first saw it when I was 10, 11 years old, it made me feel reinvigorated by Disney animation. I certainly couldn't use those words when I was 10 or 11 years old, but that was the sense that I got. Like, ooh, this was something special. I definitely had that feeling. Knowing what I know now of the importance of this movie, I feel grateful for it. I feel grateful for the animators that fought for their jobs, that never gave up.
Right.
I feel grateful for the songwriting team of Alan Menken and Howard Ashman that had a vision. I appreciate this movie on a whole other level, probably more so than I enjoy any other Disney animated movie. It's not my favorite Disney animated movie,
Right.
but it might be the one I appreciate the most, more so than the likes of Snow White,
Yeah.
where we have, the one that started it all. I appreciate this one on a whole other level, and everything that went into it, and the importance of it, and what it was able to do in its success.
Yeah. For me, this one, when I watch this one, it almost doesn't feel like a cartoon. It almost doesn't feel like animation. Like sometimes when I'm watching, as an adult, especially if I'm watching an animated movie, I feel like this is for kids. I can enjoy this because I'm here with my children watching this, or I have nostalgia for this because I watched it when I was a kid and I remember those feelings. This is one of those movies that when I watch it, I think the situations that the characters are in are simple enough so the kids can understand. She has no voice. She needs to get him to fall in love with her. But then there's the tension piece of it, and there's then the Disney people will throw in some, veiled innuendo and some other stuff throughout their movies. But, I think there's enough there for an adult to also be captivated by the writing.
The characters are real.
Yeah.
I think that's why...
I forget it's a cartoon.
I think that's why it works
I forget
on multiple levels.
Yeah.
The characters are real. It's not dumbed down because they're trying to get a kid audience.
Right.
They're just telling a real story.
Right.
It's a story that connects with
almost everyone. You look at that list of movies that came out right before it. Who's it connecting with?
Right.
You know, they made Oliver and Company. They're trying to connect with kids using rock and roll stars that kids don't know.
Right. The only I used to like that movie as a kid, and it's okay now as an adult.
The Black Cauldron connected with no one.
I like Black Cauldron. People who have black hearts. That's who the Black Cauldron connected with. But no, Oliver and Company, watching it for the podcast was a couple years ago.
Great Mouse Detective.
The only thing I connected with in Oliver and Company was Billy Joel.
Yeah.
Because I like Billy Joel.
Then or now?
But no. Then too. I like Billy Joel back then too. But back then it was also, it's a cartoon.
Right.
And it has talking dogs and cats. And yeah. But something like The Little Mermaid, and I think moving forward with a lot of their other movies is, and I think that's why some of them have translated well into the live action ones too. We watched the live action Cinderella. Really like that one. We watched the live action Beauty and the Beast. Really like that one.
You treat your characters as real.
Right.
Don't dumb them down, which is why the animated Beauty and the Beast came back as a smashing success after Rescuers Down Under.
Right.
Not only did you have the expectation of the music, but you had real characters. Really, it was the follow-up movie to Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, that they were putting a lot of money on.
Yeah.
Because they went from Little Mermaid to the failure of Rescuers Down Under to the success of Beauty and the Beast. What's the next step in this pattern? Is it now we're going to be another failure? Because they had already committed, Disney had already committed to, we're going to do an animated movie a year.
Yeah. Which means you gotta start making them like 3 to 4 years ahead of time.
So Aladdin really became the one that like, this one needs to be the successful one.
Yeah.
Which it ended up being.
Yeah.
And then we got Lion King after that, which was like, Disney can do no wrong.
Right.
And then they started failing.
Well, yeah.
But that's a story for another day.
But then Pixar showed up and saved it.
That's a whole other story.
Lion King is actually probably, if I had to list a favorite Disney animated movie, I'd say Lion King. That's probably my favorite. But, yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for Little Mermaid. Was it worth the wait?
It was.
Good.
To be able to tell the story of Disney animation.
Yeah.
It's an important story.
And like you said before, this is a pivotal movie in the Disney history.
You look at all their independent properties for a lot of their theme park stuff, and it's all tied to their animated franchise. Mostly tied to their animated franchise.
Yeah.
Without it, what do they have to stand on? They need that animation aspect to be there.
Do they have any rides or any parts of the park that are tied to Little Mermaid?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a Little
I haven't
Mermaid.
been to Disney
There's a
once.
Little Mermaid ride at the in New Fantasyland at Magic Kingdom in Florida.
Okay.
That it's pretty much it's an omnimover, so it doesn't stop.
Okay.
But it just takes you through scenes of the movie.
Okay.
There's an aerial meet and greet.
Okay.
That's really popular.
Yeah.
But it's all the way tucked way back in the park.
Okay.
That really want to go all the way back there to ride this thing.
Well, there's that. There's the gift shop, and there's a fish and chip stand.
Yeah.
There's the seafood restaurant right next to it.
With
the insane French chef.
There's so many other attractions that you have to walk past to get to the Little Mermaid ride that
it's almost not worth it at that point.
Almost not,
unless you really want to be there.
Yeah. But anyway, we could have a whole discussion about the parks.
That's true too.
At a later time.
That's true too. All right, well, that's going to do it for The Little Mermaid. Coming up, we are in the month of December. We are finishing out 1989 and finishing out the 80s with our last 3 80s movies and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker coming up. So coming up next week will be When Harry Met Sally, Say Anything, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, and then if I can get my act together, released on actual Christmas Day will be National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Oh God, do I love that movie.
I can't wait for that one.
I love that movie so hard.
Can't wait for that one.
It's so great. We're going to have a hard time picking like favorite scene or favorite quote.
Yeah, we are.
Because like the whole movie.
We might just have to do just tell people, okay, put your movie in.
Where are you going? You're not leaving. Oh no.
Just hit play. We'll do a commentary episode. We'll just do that.
See the happiest people since Bing Crosby tap dance with Danny Kaye. Holy crap! Where's the Tylenol? Can't even see the line.
Can't see the line. Can't you? No, you can't, Dad. All right.
Can I take something out for you? It wouldn't be the holiday season if the stores weren't any hotter than they are now.
Well, that's my name.
No.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode, and it's going to do it for us this week. We'll see you back here next time for When Harry Met Sally. So be excellent to each other, go watch some good movies, and we'll see you back here next time.